I'm Chase.
And I'm Andrew.
We're a third-generation family business all about farm fresh food and fun.
Welcome to the Stu Leonard's Legendary Podcast. All right, welcome to another episode of Stu's Legendary Podcast. Today we have a really mouth-watering guest, I would say, with an amazing brand called Pizza Cupcake. And it's cool. Welcome, Michelle.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, Michelle.
So, Pizza Cupcake, can you just describe like a pizza cupcake to our listeners, like in your own words, like for somebody who hasn't tried it, like what is it? What does it taste like? What does it smell like, feel like, that sort of thing?
I know, I'm sure the first reaction to listeners are like, a pizza cupcake? Like, what is a pizza cupcake? Right. Two of my favorite things combined is actually savory, not sweet. And what makes it special, it's not regular pizza dough that we use. It's a hybrid of a brioche sourdough. So we like to say it's a bougie bagel bite, but made with high quality ingredients, Italian ingredients. We import our flour and our Italian tomatoes from Italy. And then we use Italian mozzarella, but that is sourced here locally.
Awesome.
Okay, so how did you think of the Pizza Cupcake? We'll go into your whole story because you and your husband started the Pizza Cupcake not that long ago, right?
Yeah, we actually, I can't take all the credit. My better half is not here today. But it really all started on a pizza date. And my husband's from Venice, Italy. And so when we met through mutual friends, and his pickup line was, want to go out for pizza? And I thought that was very strange. But he didn't actually want to take me out to go get a slice of pizza. He wanted to teach me how to make these little pizzas, which were actually inspired by his favorite childhood snack growing up in Venice.
Okay, so were they little cupcakes that you made on your first date?
They were little pizzas inspired by the pizzette. So what's really interesting about the pizzette is they're sold in bakeries in Italy versus at the pizzeria. So it's all about the dough, and it's not really the traditional pizza dough. And so it was actually the best cooking class I ever had. And it was really sweet because it reminded me of my favorite childhood snack growing up, which I know this sounds really terrible, but it was actually bagel bites. It was like the frozen, handheld pizza snacks that I had growing up. And for me, it was like super nostalgic because it was quick to make, it was really easy. And when he heard that's what I ate growing up, he was appalled. Like, he could not believe that this is what I had. So it reminded me of, the bagel bites. And I told him, I think there's an opportunity here. And so we just started sharing it with our friends and family. And that's really how it started, bringing it to housewarming parties, birthday parties. And it was like that one dish that we would make together and bring, as like, oh, we have something really cool we want to share. And then
so you guys went on your date, and that was 2015, I think.
Yes, it was 2015.
And so you kind of, at that point, you had this like idea, like you had this like aha moment when you were there and you were making these things, and you're kind of like, so when did you actually like take this idea and just sort of do it, and did you have a job before, and were you working somewhere else and you had to like quit your job and stuff like that? Like, can you walk us through like that process?
Sure. Well, this was just something that we were doing for fun on the side. And I always felt like that there was an opportunity here. And Jared was working in a whole different industry, working in luxury. And then prior to that, he was a chef and came over here to the U.S. for Soho House. And so that's how he always had a culinary background, but then transitioned to a different industry. I've always worked in several different industries, in events, entertainment, music, and then also in tech. But really the skill set, I feel like that's a common thread is, a lot of startups. So that entrepreneurial like hustle from the beginning, I feel like I've always had. Okay. And also being really resourceful, working with very limited budget is something that I've always had to do. And then creating content. So I feel like, I don't know, with the Pizza Cupcake, it was something that we saw but didn't think it would actually become something until we applied for Smorgasburg. And that is, a popular food market in New York City. And we felt if we could make it there with really snobby New Yorkers, then I think we might have a shot. So we applied for that. And this was 2018. It was actually right before our wedding. We got an email saying we got accepted. So this was September of 2018. When we got married in Italy.
I love how like the Pizza Cupcake is a thread between your relationship.
It is. It's like the common thread. Yes, on our wedding. We even served it as like a late night snack, which our guests loved.
Where did the name come from, if you don't mind?
Well, it just reminded me of like a little cupcake and with pizza ingredients. So I was like, oh, a pizza cupcake. And then it actually stuck. And like friends and family loved it. And then customers, I felt like it created that curiosity of like, is it sweet? Is it savory? It's more of the shape versus the actual filling or the taste. But it creates that, people wanting to know, oh, let me give this a try. Like, will I like it? And what is it? And I think that has really helped us, especially on the marketing side.
So it went well at Smorgasburg.
Yeah, so we launched at Smorgasburg in November of 2018. And we skipped our honeymoon, went back to New York because we had to figure out how we were going to produce this because we weren't even in a commercial kitchen yet. And then from there, it just sort of, gave us that confidence of, wow, this is actually something that people like. We sold out the first weekend, like all of our product. I think it was like 1,200 pizza cupcakes each day. So Andrea was working, baking. There's two of us with a Baker's Pride oven, and I was doing cashier and talking to every single customer, which was awesome. And we had so many different flavors. At the time, we had margarita, pepperoni. We were doing like a zucchini, Parmesan cheese, a fungi. We also did like soppressata. And at the end of the day, customers just loved the margarita and the pepperoni. Yeah. So those were our two top sellers.
So because obviously a lot of people know the pizza cupcake from Shark Tank.
Yes.
And I saw the whole episode, which we will talk more about because it's so fascinating to hear the behind the scenes perspective of Shark Tank too. But how did when you got there, you were already in Met Stadium or Citi Field, I should say. How did you get from Smorgasburg into a huge stadium? Because that seems just in my mind like such a big leap.
I know. Well, honestly, it was the executive chef at Citi Field saw us at Smorgasburg. Yeah. And I feel like Smorgasburg was the destination. And I think it still is becoming now after COVID. But it was the place where a lot of food trends kind of popped off. And I think, a lot of emerging food brands started at Smorgasburg. And that's why we felt like if we could do well there in that market, there could be an opportunity for the product and potentially retail. And so he saw us there and then said this could be a really great item for the concessions. And they were doing a program where it was like a bunch of emerging brands, local brands in New York City that they were curating for this concession. And so that's how we started. And then from there, COVID happened. And so there was a pause on all outdoor markets, stadiums, arenas, like everything was in lockdown. And so we pivoted to direct to consumer. And it was inspired by one of our customers who was a healthcare worker at the time. And she would visit us at Smorgasburg every weekend and said, this would be something really special that I would love to bring to the hospital. It's, a trying time right now. And I feel like it would just put some smiles on everyone's face. And so I looked at Andrea and I was like, we have to figure out what to do. Because at the time we didn't know what we were going to do. And we had the ingredients. So we figured, okay, let's try to freeze the product. Because at the time, we were making it fresh every day. It was a freshly made product.
So you pivoted
to frozen. That's when we pivoted frozen, and the recipe actually worked as a frozen product as well. So Andrea, being Italian, did not want to do a frozen product. He wanted to make everything fresh. So it was he didn't really have a choice. I was like, we have to. Like, how are we going to continuously make a fresh product? And we need to ship it. And so that's how it really started. And then from there, we were also going through the Shark Tank process, and I think the timing just aligned. So the process can, from start to finish, it just really varies for every single brand. I think for us, it was about a year-long process, and I think during COVID, it didn't help, and it probably extended it much further because they didn't even know if we could film. So
then you get approved for Shark Tank, and you fly to Vegas, right? And then. So describe that. Like you're in Vegas. You're like, is it like as dramatic as it sounds? Like, when you're waiting for you're waiting there for those like big doors to open up and like,
I'd be so nervous.
And then all of a sudden you walk in and all these sharks are just staring you down. Like, is that like how intimidating was that?
I have to say you're feeling so many emotions at the same exact time. Like I can't really describe it. It's so exciting and exhilarating at the same time, but you're also very nervous and afraid. I was a little fearful. But the producer actually shared a really great tip with me. And it's so funny because when you tend to get nervous, I feel like, I just stop breathing. Like you don't really focus on your breath, right? So you're not really focused on your breathing. You're not in the present. And he was like, listen, you're going to do great. You're going to talk about your business. And all you have to do is take a deep breath, hold for 3 seconds, and as you release, roll your shoulders back 3 times. Repeat that for 3 times, and then you feel all the butterflies leaving your fingertips. And like that was the best. Yeah, that was the best advice. And I feel like we practice and, studied so much. Like I felt like I was in finals or, like taking a final exam and just had to know everything in and out of the business. So that for me, I think was really helpful. And then we walked in and seeing them there, it's like, they were all very warm in that sense. Like everyone was smiling and it didn't feel as intimidating, but you're definitely in the tank. So yes.
We're also obsessed with your product.
Yeah, that's always the fear, right? Are they going to love it or are they going to hate it? And thankfully, they loved the product, and we shipped it from Brooklyn to Vegas, prepared it that morning, and they really, really enjoyed it. So I think for us is what really helped us.
And who invested?
So Lori Grenier is our shark, yes, and she was our dream shark too. So we're really, really happy to have her.
Which is crazy because, so we were just talking about this earlier, but the reason that we actually reached out to you because we saw we scanned the Shark Tank website for new products and things like that. And Eddie O, who's our buyer, texted me, and I have the text message that we can probably put up on the screen, but it's from February 2022. And he texted me saying, I've got this, something like, this thing is going to be huge. Like, I just saw this really great idea, whatever. And he sent me the link for the Pizza Cupcake. And so we kind of set up this whole idea in our head. But what we really reached out to you guys, which is typically the opposite. Usually you're reaching out to vendors or retailers and trying to get your product in the door. But we actually reached out to you to get your product.
Yeah, no, it was amazing. I mean, Eddie has been such a great partner. I mean, you all have been such great partners for us. I like to say our mascot PC and Cal the Clover are like BFFs.
It's like meant to be.
I know. And kids love both of them.
We couldn't fit your mascot in here because you'd take up the whole
I know. PC's way too big for this space. But yeah, no, so grateful because we launched during Super Bowl. And I think the timing was also amazing because we had very limited retail distribution. So at the time, we were only really available in a few, really with 2 retailers, very limited distribution. And it was a huge opportunity, especially during Super Bowl, which is our holiday. Right?
Yeah, so you're more e-commerce, and then you decided that you need to switch over into more retail.
Yes.
So what was that process like? So obviously, Stu's, we kind of reached out to you, but in terms of other accounts, how's that process for entrepreneurs listening?
Yeah, I think for us, we were really fortunate with Shark Tank, especially since we had a lot of data from e-commerce. And I think that really helped us inform our go-to-market strategy for retail, really focusing on launching in our backyard first, where our customers are, and listening to our customers and where they shop, and making sure that we're accessible to them in those specific markets. And I feel like for us, that's been really successful. And I know some brands like to grow as quickly as possible. We are a little bit more thoughtful, especially because we are a very small team. And we don't have unlimited funding and ton of resources. So for us, it's really where can we focus our time and energy that makes the most sense, and where our customers are looking for us, and where we know that it can be a really great partnership with the retailers.
What was scaling the Pizza Cupcake like? Because obviously you get into Citi Field, I would imagine you're serving a lot more people than you were at Smorgasburg. And then you go on Shark Tank and suddenly brands like us are reaching out to you to come be sold in their stores. So how did you handle that logistically and operationally?
Yes,
that seems overwhelming.
Yeah, well, I mean, we were making everything by hand, again, as a freshly made product. And during COVID, I was actually in the kitchen with Andrea. He was like, oh my gosh, you're here too. I was literally with him everywhere, 24/7, which I wouldn't have it any other way. I think he's not here to speak for himself, but I would hope that he would love that too. But for us, it was, we started off making it fresh in a commercial kitchen. Then we would freeze it overnight. And then as we started outgrowing this commercial kitchen, which was in Queens, we realized we needed to find a co-manufacturer. And at the same time, we actually at Smorgasburg, our co-manufacturer came to visit us. It's like, this is a really great product. Oh, nice. And they're also family-owned business. And we started developing that relationship. Finding a co-man is like finding a lifetime partner. You have to date for a little bit. It took some time. You have to gain each other's trust. And then as we were going through that process, we were also expanding our distribution and seeing a lot more volume, and realized we needed to make that transition. But it also has to make sense for your business. So you need to make sure like you're at that point where you need to do mass manufacturing. And a lot of our process is still very much hand touched and handcrafted because it is a unique process and product. Which is why, not every single pizza cupcakes looks exactly the same. It's, there's a little bit of variation between each one because a lot of it is still done by hand. And
Are
so
you still doing the pepperoni?
Yes, by hand.
By
every
hand.
single one on top. Yes.
I imagine
is
that's
mind-boggling.
Andrea. That's his touch in there where he's like, no, something still got to stay.
Yeah, I know it's a lot.
Like Italy.
Yes. And I mean, yeah, so we got really lucky in just working through that process, and I just felt like all the stars aligned and the timing just worked out perfectly for us. But we were working towards that because when we knew we were going to air on Shark Tank, we said, okay, now we need to ramp up on production, make sure we have enough ingredients. And we were on pre-order for 3 months because you never know how much inventory you're going to actually sell, and you don't want to have too much inventory on hand. But so we were on pre-order for 3 months after.
That's smart because you don't know. I mean, it's probably hard to tell like how much volume you're gonna need, and you don't want to overdo it. You don't want to underdo it as well.
Right.
That's tough. And then you got some celebrity endorsements as well, right? Like Kevin Pollak. I saw something about Mariah Carey, Chrissy Teigen. Like, kind of how did you how did you get those people, and maybe talk about how that process was like.
Sure. So for Mariah Carey, that was really funny because that was through a mutual friend of Andrea and I, Fadia, and she was head of music partnerships at Instagram, and she was actually the first person who placed an order for Pizza Cupcake for her event in Los Angeles. So I saw her at Coachella, and I was like, hey, my boyfriend at the time has this really amazing product, and I knew she was a foodie. I was like, you should try it. And she's like, oh my gosh, yeah. She's like, you guys should do my event. And Andrea's like, where's the event? I was like, in LA. He's like, what? How are we going to do it in LA? I'm like, don't worry, we'll figure it out. And then I was like, you can't say no to Fadia at Instagram. We have to do it. And then she had another opportunity and was like, oh, I'm doing the series for IGTV with Mariah Carey, Moments by Mimi. And she was like, would Andrea come on and teach her how to make pizza? And he was like, his first answer was, of course, no. And then, he doesn't like to be in front of the camera. So that was really him stepping out of his comfort zone. So that was through a relationship, and an opportunity. And I think it's, the product speaking for itself and wanting to share the Pizza Cupcake with more people. And then with Kevin, so Andy and Julie Mendelson, who's actually one of our first investors, Julie grew up at Stu's, right? So when she heard about Stu's, she was like, this is incredible. And, she was so excited. And they had a relationship with Kevin Pollak. And that's how we met Kevin. And I know when he came to visit, Andy and Julie brought him here. And Jamai, I believe,
fun.
yeah.
Oh my God, he was a blast. Like, both of them were. They were like amazing. They were dancing with like, I think they did this little dance with the avocados for like a long time.
All the different singing animation shows around the store. They like hit up.
It's amazing.
So cool.
Yeah, and he's been a huge supporter and just really rooting for us, and it's been really great. I mean, that whole group of people, just, they really love the product and they're super passionate. And I think that's how we've been really fortunate, is just having people in our corner who believe in the product and really believe in us and have supported us since day one. And we're so grateful. And I mean, we're still, very small and growing, but to have that type of support is really incredible. And I think has really helped us. And then with Chrissy, I actually know her hairstylist, Ironell, and Ironell saw us on Shark Tank, and she got Pizza Cupcakes, and she is Chrissy's personal hairstylist, and shared it with Chrissy, and that's how the collaboration came to fruition. It was more like, she's like, this is amazing, let's do something, and we did a limited edition drop for Valentine's Day last year.
What's your perspective on the balance of selling versus having kind of these opportunities come your way and just letting them be what they are? Because I would imagine when you're starting a brand like this and you have a great product and it can speak for itself, but it's still really difficult to you do have to push, as you did on Shark Tank a little bit, you have to push your product, but then you also don't want to be kind of annoying to people and be like, hey, can you promote this? So what have you learned throughout the whole process? What's the balance that you're able to strike with that?
Well, I think at the end of the day, when you're building any business, it all comes down to relationships, and it's your relationships that are going to take you even further, and it's also your product, right? So I think they go hand in hand. And when you have a CPG brand, right, you're always selling it, but you also need to be mindful on like who you're actually trying to target. And I think that's really important and what has helped led to our success. I don't even think we're successful, but throughout our journey,
You are.
but we have a long way to go. But I think it's finding the right people and also staying true to who you are. I think, Andrea and I work really hard, and the number one thing that we pride ourselves on is our integrity. And I think that shines through. So whenever we are talking to people or building a partnership or a relationship, we want it to be something that everyone is excited about, and it's like a true partnership. And I think that's the most important. It's like a win-win situation for both, and it's not us trying to get something from you and trying to, I don't ever think it's one-sided. And again, it comes down to the relationship. It comes down to the trust and both parties mutually excited. And I know that's what you spoke about during your podcast, is like the customer is always right, and also the excitement that your customers feel when they walk through the store. And I think that's sort of the special magic that we have with the product, is that excitement, and everyone's really excited about it, and they want to share it, and they also want to partner with us. So I don't know if I really answered your question, but I think it just comes down to, you never want to force anything, and if it feels right, then it's going to work out. But you never want to feel like, no one ever wants to feel like they're getting taken advantage of, or that you're trying to sell them something and feel like you're trying to win over on them.
Yeah, the win-win is like, it has to be a win-win for both parties.
Exactly.
And you guys, I will say, one, you are successful here because we've sold over 250,000 Pizza Cupcake, like individual Pizza Cupcakes over the last, year and a half, which is insane. And just from working with you, and now Andrea, it's been like such a pleasure to work with you guys. Like, you are so down to earth. You do samplings, like you're pushing the product. You have an amazing product, which is awesome. So like, for us, like, we want to invest in you too. Whether that's like on the floor, we have a huge like freezer in the middle aisle with the TV and the Shark Tank, and that like stops every single customer. Will stop and be like you said, oh, Pizza Cupcake, like what's this? And they pick it up and they look at it. You do tastings, so they come and try it, and like that's so important too, because you guys just get it really. And it's been like awesome working with you guys.
And thank you. No, you guys have been amazing, and I think for us that's how we started, right? So actually for me, I love being around our customers. I love being around people, and being, doing cashier every weekend was a really great opportunity for us to also learn about our customer, what they like, what they dislike. And that, I think, is the most important. How you have built such a successful family business, 3 generations, is incredible, because you put your customers first and you listen, which is the most important.
So I imagine when you started at Smorgasburg and then you had your friends, you had an idea of who your customer was. Has anything surprised you now that you're in retail stores with who likes the Pizza Cupcake? And
well, it's so funny because I feel like a lot of people love pizza, right? So it's breaking it down to the different segments and really trying to focus, because I feel like you could target anybody. We really focus on like the multitask mom, which I feel like is the shopper, right? She's looking for convenience, but also looking for something that's a little bit more better for you in a sense. We're not healthy, but we're better for you. We use clean ingredients, high quality ingredients, no artificial preservatives in our product. And I think that's what separates us from other frozen pizza snacks in the category. And so I would say the customer hasn't really changed, but I think it's more of us really focusing and honing in on who that customer is in retail. And the shopper is very different at each retailer as well.
Okay.
So it's understanding that profile.
So, do you want to tease anything? Like, what's next? Like, what's next for Pizza Cupcake? Like, are you guys growing in terms of, like, are you getting more retailers? Are you coming out with new innovation? Like, are you just kind of sticking to your guns and just, like, riding the wave at this point? Or what? Kind of, like, what's next for you guys?
Well, we are currently working on a rebrand, so I will tease that out. And I think there's an opportunity in the future for product extensions. And so, I know you have tried one of the new product extensions, so there might be an opportunity to launch that in the future. We're very excited, and I think the focus for us, though, is to go narrow and deep and to just really focus on our current 2 hero SKUs that we know our customers love, with the opportunity to expand into product extensions in the future. So
cool. I think that's smart too. Just keep it simple. Like, stick to what works.
Yes.
That's kind of how we operate too. Like, limited items. Like, don't get too fancy with it. Just stick to what works and just go all in. So
so that's what we're doing. And
okay. Oh, sorry to interrupt you. I have a question for you, and it's a general one, but I want to see if anything comes to mind.
Sure.
From like 2015, 2018 until now, what do you think as an entrepreneur has been your biggest challenge, and how did you overcome it?
So I'm going to be very honest. My
Okay.
biggest challenge has always been the work-life balance. And I think as a new mother, that has been very difficult. And I think, when you are an entrepreneur growing this little baby, right? Like our business is our first baby. We always joke. We feel like, you have so much time. You have all the time in the world, and that's your only focus. And then entering into motherhood, that has, been very different, and trying to navigate like the new normal, because you don't have all the time in the world, but then you still have this like real life human that you're growing, and then trying to prioritize. So I think, looking back at when Andrea and I were first dating, we're boyfriend, girlfriend, to now, being married and growing our family while also growing our business. I think that has been the biggest lesson, is trying to find that balance. And I think, everyone wants to try to find that balance. But that has been the biggest challenge for me so far.
That makes sense. And I imagine it will ebb and flow too. Like
It
you had a
does.
lot more time when
Yes.
you didn't have a child, and I'm sure that was all you thought about was the pizza cupcake, and now
Right.
you have different responsibilities. And
Yeah, and I mean, and we still have, the pizza cupcake is always like, okay, like how are we gonna manage the time, and how are we
Sure.
going to do this? So I feel like, we came and did the demo,
I
right?
was just
And
gonna
we,
say,
we brought our son, right? And then Andrea was baking. So it's
Yeah.
like we're always there. And I think that's what makes it so special too, is like we're both in the business.
yeah,
So we can, like you said, there's ebbs and flows, but we can pivot very quickly and we can make it work. We always find a solution.
That was like, honestly, so it was just crazy because Andrea was baking, you were pushing the stroller, feeding your son like a banana, and you just matched up and talking to customers, and like, that's a perfect example. Like you could have easily rescheduled or said, no,
Yeah.
we can't make it, we don't have childcare.
Well,
or whatever
because
that, but
the person that was
you made
supposed to
it.
be the brand ambassador didn't show up.
Right.
And I was like, we're just still going to go. Let's just go
Yeah.
and say hello. And thankfully we came, because he called out sick and was like, I can't make it. I was like, oh, okay. I was like, so we're here. We'll do this.
You want to know what's cool though? You are the customer in that scenario. You're the
Yes.
multitasking mom.
I am the customer. Yes.
And that's that hustle factor we were talking about
Yeah.
on a previous episode. Is like that entrepreneurial like hustle. Like some people have it and some people don't. You guys clearly have it because
Yeah.
like, I mean, that kudos to you for going through all that and doing that. So
And I think maybe another answer that, that can resonate with maybe someone who isn't a mother. I think another challenge is how to scale the business the right way, not going too quick, not going, too slow, and also knowing when it's the right time to expand, I think is always the challenge.
Yeah.
So I think timing is everything, and having the right resources as you start to scale is really important.
Yeah, we talk about that at Stu Leonard's too, because
Right.
we're growing as well, and we don't want to lose our culture and our quality and all the things that have made us who we are.
Who you
today.
are,
Yeah.
exactly. And so there are sacrifices when you scale too quickly, right? You have to
Yes.
compromise, and what your dad said, your customer knows when you're cutting corners and they're not going to be happy.
Yeah.
And so you can't compromise quality for price, but you also want to give the best price. And how do you find that balance? And that's
hard.
And that is our struggle, right?
that's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And perhaps one that we all live with for the rest of our life when we're in this type of business.
Exactly.
It's like an uphill battle. When
Exactly.
It comes to that. But if we stay customer focused, I think, and quality focused at the end of the day, we'll be okay.
Exactly. Because the customers who love the
True to-
product will always come back,
Yeah.
and you have that repeat customer for life.
Yeah, true to who we are. All right, well,
Yeah.
thank you, Michelle.
Yeah.
Thank you
thank
so
you
much
so
for coming
much.
on.
This
Yeah,
was so
I'm
fun.
eyeing these pizza cupcakes
Right.
over here.
I know, I'm, like, ready to
I know what
eat
I'm
one.
having for lunch now. Yeah.
I was saying earlier, like I still eat them like almost once a week. Like,
That is a good
I
sign.
really love it. And Nicholas loves pizza cupcakes too.
Oh, that's good. Yeah,
If you
you're
didn't,
gonna
I'd be
keep your son
concerned.
around.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, that'd be heartbreaking.
All right,
Awesome.
well,
Thank you so much.
Thank you for
All
sharing
right.
everything with us. We
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Don't mind me just sipping on my swoon.
This episode is brought to you by Swoon Iced Tea. It's 0 sugar, monk fruit, sweetened, dad approved. And
It's delicious.
delicious.
And I love it too because it's 2 female founders.